Now, this particular session is something a little bit out of the ordinary for what I do. I don't typically consider myself to be a motivational speaker. I'm usually training people to build Amazon affiliate websites or to do technical web design type of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, I have a lot that I feel like I can share with potential online marketers, people who are either considering doing this for a full-time living or just to make some extra income, or perhaps for people that are already actively doing it. Because I've been doing this for a long time. Just for the last 4 years, I've been actually developing products for other marketers and teaching them things, but for long before that, a decade or more, I was already working for myself online, just not necessarily in the public eye. So I've had to overcome a lot of obstacles to get to where I am today. And this particular class is about overcoming some of those obstacles and maintaining motivation to actually continue on to the point where you actually get successful. Because once you start getting those paychecks in, it becomes a lot easier and everything is kind of justified. Leading up to that point can be a lot harder, and even once you do start earning money, you still have to stay motivated and dedicated to what you're doing. Otherwise, you can simply sit around every day and do nothing because you don't have anybody telling you, you have to do this today or else you're going to lose your job. You just say, oh, well, I'll put that off, I'll do it later tonight, I'll do it tomorrow, and a week or two passes and it simply never gets done. This is exactly what you need to help overcome the blockages. Dale, great to hear. I've had them in my own marketing career, and I know other people have got to experience the same type of thing. So that's why I put together this particular special session for you guys. Now, I usually do a lot of live walkthroughs. I'm actually not like a major fan of doing the whole slideshow thing, but obviously what I have to talk to you guys about today doesn't necessarily involve showing you how to do anything particular. So I am going to walk you through some slides today as I talk to you, just so you can kind of have something visual to go on along with what I am trying to teach you guys today. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is real versus online work. They're same in a lot of ways, but they're also very different in a lot of ways. Obviously, the end goal of any kind of work is to make money so you can pay your bills and live a comfortable lifestyle, perhaps. Not everybody is out there to try to get rich off of their work. And the same thing kind of applies when you're working online. Not everybody has to work online and be one of those major guru marketing millionaires out there. I'm not a millionaire. It's quite okay to not be a millionaire and work online. It is a great way to make a reliable living from the comfort of your own home, but you just have to simply know how to approach it correctly. And it can end up being more lucrative than real work, especially for the time that you end up putting into it. Now, obviously, with real work, you have a set work schedule. You have a boss telling you what days and what hours you're expected to be there. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Some people work on salary and they may not have specific hours, but they're still required to work at least a minimum number of hours every week, 40, 45 hours, maybe even 50 hours or more. So you're expected to show up and be there, and while you're there, you have certain expectations that are placed upon you. And obviously, if you don't meet those expectations and if you don't show up for work when you're supposed to, you can simply end up getting fired. And so this kind of fear mentality of your job actually keeps you waking up every day and staying on a schedule and going there and doing what you have to do, whether you want to be doing it or not. You also train with and work with a team. You're not by yourself when you're working a real job. Even if the job that you do is by yourself, you're still likely involved in a company where you have other people that have taught you to do what you're doing or could offer you some type of guidance if you run into problems. And then on top of that, you have typically, in most cases at least, a set income. You get paid by the hourly, you get a particular salary. Either way, you are generally limited in your income. You work for years and years and years to get fairly minute raises, a couple of percentages every year, every couple of years, and even then it's only if you're lucky. When the economy's bad, they pretty much wipe out raises entirely. Well, when it comes to working online, it's different in a lot of those aspects. You work at your own pace. You don't have anybody saying you have to be here at this time until this time and work nonstop or else you're out of here. You set your own schedule. Whatever expectations there are about your job, they're expectations that you have set upon yourself. When you're working, typically you work alone. Typically you train alone. There are some exceptions to this kind of situation. You could partner up with somebody to work. You could hire people to work for you. You could perhaps be working for other people. Or you might be doing training perhaps in a more group or personal environment, something like this particular class. Regardless though, when it comes down to it, you're still typically alone when it comes to getting your actual job done. And if you run into a problem, you don't have somebody that you can necessarily turn around to or immediately grab on the phone and solve a problem for you. So you have to be self-motivated and you have to be able to know exactly what you need to be doing to progress along. And so a lot of what I want to talk to you guys about today is actually going to be how you can take a lot of these things about working online and make them more like real work, with the exception of the income. The income with your real work obviously being a set income. When you work online, it's typically performance-based. You could work 100 hours a week and only make $100. You might even make nothing. But you could also work 10 hours a week and make thousands of dollars. It all simply depends on the effectiveness of what you're actually doing. So it's more important in my eyes than a real job even to stay on track and to have these expectations and to set yourself a work schedule that you actually follow. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about are setting your goals. Yes, Dale, this is being recorded. All of you guys will get access to a recording later this evening. An email should be sent to you with a link in it, and you'll have permanent access to that as well. So you can watch this later on if you would like to go back over everything. Now, setting your goals. This is one time where I'd like for you guys to either answer this in the chat box or just answer it in your own head, whatever works best for you. Regardless, I'd like for you to at least set it in your own mind. What do you want to achieve? What are your goals with working online? Are you trying to quit your full-time job and solely work online? Are you trying to make some kind of a supplemental income so your normal job income can actually be better than what might ordinarily be possible? Whatever your goals are, it's okay to have differing goals, but you need to have this clear in your own mind of what it is you want to achieve in the long run. And next, you need to know what steps will you need to take to achieve that particular goal. If your goal is to simply make a supplemental income to go along with your real job or whatever else your standard income may be, then figure out exactly what it is that you need to do to make that happen. If you're building Amazon affiliate websites, get an estimate of what you think each site is going to earn for you. Maybe even get a couple of them built and put out there and use that as a real-life gauge of income based on the kind of work that you're doing. And do some calculations. Figure out how many websites would you need to build to reach the point that you're trying to reach. And try to figure out what your expectations are in terms of a time frame. Are you trying to achieve this in a month or two? Are you trying to achieve this a couple of years down the road? This allows you to kind of look at what your plans are and put some realism to it, to really understand, okay, what kind of pace do I need to be setting to actually reach these goals? If I need to build 20 Amazon affiliate sites, for example, to reach my desired income so I could quit my full-time job, how quickly do I want to achieve that? And then how quickly do I need to have each of those sites built? Do I need to have each of them done in 2 weeks, or do I have a month or two to focus on each of them? Having all this laid out ahead of time really can kind of help you to gauge what your pace needs to be and whether you can actually meet that pace. So that time doesn't pass and maybe you don't meet your expectations because perhaps they were a little bit too ambitious. Maybe you don't actually have enough time to do the work necessary to achieve those goals within the initial time frame you set. It's quite okay. You just need to get something realistic worked out so you can actually achieve that and not disappoint yourself and make others believe that maybe what you're doing isn't necessarily the right path. And I'll talk about others a little bit and what they can kind of think of working as an online marketer here in just a little while too. Now the next thing is stay focused. I know I was just talking about your long-term goals. Well, once you have figured out what your long-term goals are, you know how I was talking about the different steps that you're going to need to take to be able to achieve that long-term goal? Those would be essentially your short-term goals. Figure out what those goals are going to be. And then instead of focusing on the big picture all at one time, just focus on one single goal at a time. If you're building websites, focus on one website at a time. That way you're not overwhelmed with the prospect of, hey, I have to build 20 websites or 50 websites or whatever the case may be. Your focus is simply on the website that you're building. You build that website, you complete it, you move on to your next goal. This way you stay focused on the work that you're actually doing and you don't overwhelm yourself when it comes to the work that you actually have to do. And personally, I feel like this is something that really affects a lot of people. A lot of people skip around from one project to the next. I know this because I do it too. It's something I have to stop myself from doing. You have ideas perhaps that are popping into your head all the time. And you're like, ooh, that's a great idea. I want to stop what I'm doing and I want to mess with this for a little while. And then before you get that finished, you come up with another idea and you're like, ooh, I want to try that out. And eventually a year passes, you have 20 different half-completed projects and you're still not making any money and you really have nothing to show for all that time and effort that you've put into it. So figure out what it is that you want to do and focus on one single thing at a time. Complete that. Whether it turns out to be a success or a failure, at least it is completed and you can move on to the next goal, your next project, and maintain your focus and actually get things done. One thing that a lot of marketers may not quite understand is that not everything that you do is going to be successful. No matter how good you are, no matter how long you have been doing this, no matter how many contacts you might have in the industry, you can still flop on something, and it's okay. Do not let it discourage you. You simply have to understand that it happens. It's the nature of the game. This happens to me too. I have had a number of things that I've done that have been overwhelmingly successful, and then I've had other things that I feel like I'm 10 or 15 years ago in terms of the response that I received to it. So it doesn't mean that you're a failure. And trust me, this doesn't just happen with people at my level. It even happens with the best of people, all the way up at the top, the people that are making the millions of dollars. Not every single thing that they touch turns to gold either. If you go and research a lot of famous people back in history, you'll find out the same thing actually goes for them. A really famous example being the light bulb. He didn't figure that out on the first attempt. It took him hundreds. I think it was 400 something attempts before he actually invented the light bulb. So don't feel like you have to do everything successfully and perfect on your very first attempt or on every single attempt that you make. Just be prepared for not everything working out. When you have something that turns out to be really, really successful and you get more money than you were expecting, perhaps, don't necessarily take that as a sign that now your income is immediately increased. A lot of people will do something that gets really popular. They'll make a lot of money from it. They'll think, I'm going to make this money every single month, and they'll go out and blow it all. And then the next month, they don't make anything. Or the next project they put out, it doesn't do anywhere near as good. And they're left stuck, essentially, because they didn't plan for the ups and the downs of the business. Now, the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is getting organized. When it comes to each of the projects that you are working on, take that a step further and break down each of your projects into steps. This is actually how I proceed with anything that I do online, whether I'm building a website, whether I'm developing a new plugin, whether I'm planning out a new webinar series or writing a book. It really doesn't matter. Every single thing that I do, I know exactly what I'm going to do ahead of time before I even start the first bit of work on my actual project. I will take a piece of paper or a notebook. Actually, I have a pile of notebooks on my desk from over the years with all of my chicken scratch notes of everything that I've planned to do for my projects. And I'll break each of my projects down into steps and essentially make myself a checklist. This way, when I'm actually sitting there on a daily basis doing work, I'm not having to constantly keep fresh in my mind what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. You don't have that boss over your shoulder or ringing you up on the phone saying you need to get this done by the end of the day. You have to be responsible for that yourself. So the way that I accomplish this with my own work is by making these checklists for myself. That way, when I sit down to work, I have the checklist sitting right in front of me. If you only have one computer screen, for example, this makes it a lot easier to deal with because you don't have to be flipping back and forth. I know a lot of you may think, well, why wouldn't I just make these lists on my computer, for example? Because if you only have one screen, you don't want to be flipping back and forth all the time. Personally, I use 3 screens, so I can do a lot of different things all at once and be viewing a lot of stuff all at one time. But I also kind of have more of a demand for something like that than the average user. When it comes to like programming and things of that nature, it's good to have the live web page that I'm working on one screen and the code on another screen, and perhaps another website or some notes or something up on a third screen, so I don't have to constantly be flipping back and forth, and it helps to increase your productivity. Well, as you go through each item on your list, you simply just check it off when you get done with it, and you move on to the next one. And then when you come back to your work the next day, you know exactly what it is that you need to be working on. You just look at your checklist and you say, okay, well, I finished this yesterday, and today I need to be working on this next step. So by doing this, you stay on track. You don't waste a lot of time. You're not sitting there saying, okay, what was I doing, pulling back up websites or whatever, trying to find your place again. You have it all written down right in front of you. And it really only takes a limited amount of time. You can sometimes even make up these checklists when you're away from doing your work. If you're working a real job perhaps and you're on your lunch break, pull out a notepad and plan out the project that you want to start working on that evening. And then you get home and you have your checklist all ready to go, and you can immediately jump on your project and start figuring out what you need to do. I kind of apply this same concept broadly. If you have a fairly large project that's going to have a lot of different steps to it, start by breaking that down into general steps. And then you could go back into those general steps and try to break them down in even more detail. So you get to the point where you have essentially all the different tasks that you need to get completed written out on your checklist. Now, it may not be necessary if you're doing something a little more simple, but when you get into more complicated projects, you might find that to be helpful. However detailed you need to get with that checklist to actually be able to look at it and remember exactly what you're needing to be working on, then that's as far as you really need to be going with it. I personally use this all the time. I honestly can't fathom what I would do without it. The times that I didn't do this, I found myself getting sidetracked a lot. I would get essentially confused on what it was that I was supposed to be doing, or I might repeat something that I had already done and go to save my work and realize, oh wait, I already did that. So this helps to save a ton of time and helps you to continue moving forward with your own work. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is handling your daily task. There are going to be a lot of things outside of your normal projects, the standard work that you're trying to progress through, that you'll still need to take care of. Perhaps you're browsing through a website and you notice that there's a typo somewhere, or you receive an email from a customer and they point out that you need to, make some kind of adjustment to your site, or something isn't working correctly. Whatever the case may be, there will be a lot of these little random daily tasks that pop up, things that might pop into your head that you need to simply take care of that aren't necessarily part of your normal projects. Personally, I like to use sticky notes for this particular purpose. My desk has a bookshelf that stands behind my computer monitors, and connecting the bookshelves is this flat wall, and I'll write down these quick tasks on sticky notes and I'll simply stick them up there. So they're all up there where I can easily see everything and know what I need to get taken care of. So whenever it comes time for me to put in the work to get those tasks done, I can glance up there, look at one of my tasks, get it taken care of and completed, and when I'm finished, I just reach up there and pull off the sticky note and throw it away. That way, everything is laid out right in front of me, exactly what I need to be working on, and I don't have to worry about remembering everything. Personally, I have a pretty good memory when it comes to things like this. But even with that, I still find it easier to use these notes to keep track of everything. Because even if you have a great memory and you can remember almost everything, those couple of minor things that you end up forgetting can end up coming back to haunt you. Or you may find yourself essentially finding those problems and reminding yourself to do them over and over again before you actually get it done. It's something else that can waste time with the work that you're doing. So this is simply the way that I like to try to overcome this problem and take care of all of these day-to-day tasks that I'm actually working on. The next thing I want to talk to you about is kind of the main subject of this particular webinar, and that's getting motivated. We had talked before about your goals. I don't think anybody actually mentioned what their goals were. I'm hoping that you at least made a mental note of what your goals were or wrote them down perhaps. I would like for you to do the same thing here again. Those goals that you figured out or wrote down, obviously you want to achieve them, but why exactly do you want to achieve them? Do you not enjoy working a real job? Do you want to be able to spend more time at home with your family instead of being out there at work or commuting to and from work every day? Do you want to be able to make more money than you're able to make in your real job, or perhaps more money than your education level will allow you to make? Personally, I attended college, but I didn't actually graduate from college. I was already doing online marketing work while I was attending college, and it kind of got to a point where I just started wondering, is what I'm going to school for really worth it? Now, please do not, if you're in school, don't go drop out of school because of me saying that. I had an income going for me at the time. I already had something in place that was kind of leaning me in that direction. And I'm a very technological person, so I felt like this was something that I could continue to do and keep up on as the years rolled by and continue to make a good living doing it. So I reached a point where I decided to stop going to school, and I solely focused on my marketing. And obviously things picked up quite a bit from that point because I never ended up going back to school, and I honestly make more now than I could ever have hoped to make from graduating at that particular school. And I was going for computer animation also, so it probably would have been a halfway decent income from that type of career. But even with that said, I feel like I could make more online. But not only that, I have a family. I'm married. I have 3 kids. Obviously, I wasn't married back in college, but actually not too long after I left college is when I got together with my wife now. But we had known each other previously back in high school. We had been best friends for many years. Well, obviously, once I got married, I knew that I wanted to continue to do this. There were some rough times in there. I've worked a real job before. I know what it's like. I've worked cooking in a restaurant before, slaving away 12 hours a day and making practically nothing to show for it. It's not fun. It's not something that you necessarily want to strive to do for the rest of your life. And it really doesn't even leave you much quality time with the people that you love as a result. So personally, those were the reasons why I wanted to achieve my goals to work online. And all of you should have your own reasons as well. So it's important to get this clear in your mind and understand exactly what it is that you are trying to work for, because this is important to help you stay motivated. I like to hang a picture, possibly words, at my work area to symbolize my motivation. It provides a constant reminder of what you're working for and why you're doing this. I mentioned my family, my wife and my 3 children here, and me as well. These guys are why I do this. If I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't be able to spend nearly as much time with them, and they wouldn't be able to have the life that they have, because there's no way that I could possibly make what I make and live where I live and give them the lifestyle that they have. We're not rich or anything, but I'm also not living in the poverty level like I may have been doing a long, long time ago. So these guys are why I continue on. But not only that, I do this for myself as well. And this is really important. Even beyond the family and the money and everything, it's what works best for you. Do you enjoy getting up and going out to work every day? Or would you prefer to be able to not do that and set your own pace and make your own way in life? It's all about what will make you happy. Personally, this is what makes me happy and why I get motivated to do the work that I do. So I wanted to be sure to mention all of this to you guys so you can try to focus on exactly what it is that you're motivated about and why you want to be doing this type of work, because this will help you to keep going whenever you start saying, maybe I should take a day off today, or whenever you start saying, I just don't feel like doing this, I'll put it off till a little bit later. You have to stay on track and get the work done when it's actually time to get the work done. Now, getting back to the real job type of scenario, one of the things that I highly, highly recommend is setting a schedule for yourself. Whatever the case may be, whether you're working a real job and trying to fit your online work into whatever your work hours may be to work around that schedule, or whether you're working full-time from your own home, you need to set yourself a schedule so you have clear in your head exactly when it is that you're supposed to be doing work and when it is that you're not supposed to be doing work. This not only helps you to stay on track and ensures that you actually get the work done that your goals are requiring you to get done, but it also helps with friends and family. Let them know what your schedule is to avoid conflicts. After years and years of doing this, I can tell you, and I've even heard this from other marketers, so I know I'm not alone in this. When you work at home, people will assume you are always free, no matter what. So you have to make this clear to them that this is like a real job for you. And during these days and these times, you're simply not available. Pretend as though you were at a real job. Maybe make yourself available by phone or email or something like you would do at a standard job. But beyond that, if somebody wants you to come out and grab a bite to eat, or somebody wants to drop by and come hang out for a little while, just simply say, I'm working. If I was at the office, I wouldn't be able to do that. I can't do that here. And once you kind of get this habit made and in place in your life, things will get a lot better. But if you don't do this, your life can really become quite hectic, and you'll constantly be struggling to get work done, and you'll never really have time off because you'll feel like you're always needing to get something done. So set the schedule for yourself, and then when it's not time to work, you relax. This way, you can continue on with your plans for long term. This isn't something that you're just trying to do for a couple of weeks or something. Whatever your goals may be, whether you want to do this full time or whether you're just trying to make some extra money, chances are that's not something that you just want to do for a little while and then have it stop all of a sudden. You want to build it and keep it going for a prolonged period of time. So personally, I feel like this is one of the most important things that you can really be focused on. Without this schedule, you're just kind of running blind. You get home from work and maybe you don't feel like working at home more that particular day. Well, whatever your schedule is set to, don't get too aggressive with it. You need to be reasonable with it, especially if you are working a real job on top of what you're actually trying to accomplish online. You don't want to kill yourself, but you also don't want to allow too much time to pass and for your goals to not be achieved as a result of that. So sit down and take a calendar of the month and lay out what your schedule is. Write down the hours that you work for a normal job. Write down the hours that perhaps you have other prior obligations that you're expected to do. And, leave time in there for yourself, leave time in there for your family, and figure out what you can realistically devote to your online career. And then revisit your schedule as needed and make adjustments to this. If you get to the point where you can quit your full-time job and start focusing solely online, then obviously you would want to redo your schedule at that point because you could probably start working even more. And that's kind of really the exciting point, where if you can make enough working online to completely support yourself and you're already working a full-time job on top of that, then once you get to that point where your online job can completely cover everything and you can get rid of that full-time job, then your schedule really, really opens up and you can honestly double the amount of work that you put in and still reduce your workload overall. And typically in that type of scenario, you end up raising your income even far above and beyond what you were able to achieve with your real job. So again, the scheduling, something that personally I find very, very important, not only for yourself, but for other people as well. Now, another thing that I find really important is managing your time. I had kind of already started talking about this a little bit with setting a schedule. You have to know how much time you can devote to working on your online business each week. Set goals for yourself for specific time periods. It's not just enough to have a schedule and to be sitting in front of the computer for however many hours you've decided to be there for. You actually need to have some expectations for yourself and what you plan on getting accomplished during that time. You're more likely to meet your goals and stay productive when you're doing it this way. Otherwise, you're just kind of bouncing all over the place and you never really know what to expect. It's hard to plan anything when you don't know how long it takes you to build a website, for example. So, try to set some goals for yourself and say, okay, I want to get this website built in 2 weeks. And in order to make that happen, then I have, say, 10 different work days within the course of that 2 weeks. What do I need to accomplish each of those days to actually be done with everything by the end of that 2-week time period? Whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months, it's quite okay. It's just about setting those expectations and those goals for yourself so you can properly manage your time. And this helps to keep you on track and focused. Now, the next thing is removing distractions. Personally, I find this to be another really, really important aspect of working at home. You need to have a peaceful, focused work environment, somewhere that you can sit down and actually think about what you're doing and pay attention to your work without being distracted by everything else that's going on around you. Now, when you work at home, this becomes a completely different ballgame from how it is when you're working in an office or at a real job, for example. You might have people around your house all the time. You might have kids running around your house all the time. Whenever possible, have a devoted home office room so you can kind of set this as being off limits to perhaps other people in the family if those family members are a distraction for you. Now, if you can't have a devoted home office room, it's okay. You can still manage to do this type of work without it. I've had to do it for years where my desk was essentially in the living room where everybody would be hanging out all day long, and I would have to try to drown them out and still pay attention to what I was doing. I'll have some tactics to talk to you guys about overcoming obstacles like that here in just a few. The real reason I wanted to talk to you about distractions is entertainment. If you have a work area and perhaps what you like to do for fun is contained within that same work area, it can be a major distraction for you. So I like to recommend, if you have a devoted home office, for example, don't have a TV in there. Don't have the Xbox in there or whatever your other hobbies may be. Try to keep that stuff separate. So when you're in your office, it's work time. And when you leave the office, then it's time to have fun and do whatever else you would like to do. And as I had mentioned before, ask your family to not disturb you while you're working. Whatever this may take, you could lock the door. You could simply ask them if it's possible for that to happen and actually become a reality. If this involves other family members or even friends perhaps that live near you, people that maybe just drop over unannounced or something, let all these people know what you're doing and let them know how important it is that you actually focus on the work that you're doing and that you stay on track so you can accomplish your goals and get to the point where things will finally lighten up a little bit for you. Because there is ultimately a point to all of this. You're trying to do all of this work and you're putting forth this extra effort to eventually reach the point where you can kind of take a step back a little bit and not have your income drop off as a result. It's all possible to do online, but you simply have to put forth the effort and the dedication to be able to get to that point. And with all these distractions, it can end up taking twice as long, or possibly you may never end up getting to that point at all. Now, the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is overcoming obstacles. Now, if any of you have obstacles that you are working to overcome with your own online career, please feel free to type them into the chat box for me, and I'd be more than happy to give you my opinion on it, tell you how I may try to work around that problem, or in fact it may be a problem that I've already had to deal with before, so I may already have a potential solution for you. So don't be shy. Please feel free to ask me anything you would like at any point throughout this particular session. I find that it's important to be prepared to get creative to overcome obstacles when you're working at home, because no matter how hard you try, you're going to have obstacles that you have to get past. It could be income, it could be other people, it could be a lack of workspace, it could be a lack of the technology to do the work on, it could be other people not understanding what it is that you're doing. Just some of the things that I've had to do. I've had to work while everybody sleeps. I have 3 kids. When each of those kids was extremely young, newborn to 1.5 or so, I essentially had no choice but to work during the nighttime. Because if I worked during the day, then the baby would be crawling all over me while I was trying to work, and I literally got absolutely nothing done. So instead of letting it drive me crazy, I got creative and I figured out a way to overcome that obstacle. Now, it may seem a little crazy to work all night long, but if you kind of think about it, if you set up your schedule correctly, you can do something like this and have it not affect everyone else in your family. For example, if you go out and you work during the day, or if you're sitting around your house working all day long, then obviously you would end up sleeping at nighttime. So to keep your evenings in place and at home with your family, all you have to do is reverse your work and your sleep time. You work at night and you sleep during the day. That way, when your kids get home from school, for example, then you're up and you have the whole evening free with them. You get them off to bed, and then it's work time. I've had to do it for years, and it's not necessarily fun to do, but it's really peaceful. There aren't any distractions at nighttime when everybody's asleep. There's no noise. There's nobody saying, you know, can you do this? Can you hang out with me? You know, whatever the case may be. That's a good point, Dale. He says, my biggest distractions are the shiny object syndrome. Email lists that he is on with the latest and greatest new product or technique, and being scattered like I was talking about towards the beginning. This is really, really common, Dale. I hear this from a lot of people, honestly. The thing is, there's always going to be a marketer with a new way to make money. And they're going to have all these wonderful things to say about it, and they're going to have all this proof to go along with it. And it's not that one may be better than the other. It's not that perhaps one could make you more money than the other one, or that one is right and one is wrong. The thing that I recommend to people is, involving setting your goals and figuring out what it is that you're trying to achieve online, you need to try to maintain that focus when it comes to buying products. And a lot of marketers think I'm crazy for teaching people this because I sell products myself too, but in fact, I tell people, don't buy something if it's not going to help you achieve the goals that you're currently working on. Stay focused, and then you'll not only not get sidetracked by all those new products and new techniques and stuff, but you'll also save money as a result. You won't end up with a lot of products that you'll end up never using. This is common across the board. Every single brand new product that comes out and gets sold, a solid 25 to 50% of the people that buy that product never touch it. They never even download it. And it might seem a little on the crazy side, but it happens all the time because, you're drawn in by what it is that they're telling you. And what you need to do, instead of saying, oh, well, I need to jump on this before it's too late possibly, you need to just say, okay, well, this sounds like another viable way to make money online, but I've already got my own method that I'm working on, and I need to stay focused on that. And sometimes you can kind of look at what these new products are doing, the new techniques that they're using, without even buying the products. Just look at the sales page and try to figure out what exactly is going on and see how you could apply that to what your current goals are and what you're currently working on. This way you're not buying that product and getting sidetracked from it, but perhaps you can still pick up a little bit of knowledge or some extra tips that you could apply to whatever it is that you're working on. So my biggest recommendations there, Dale, would be, just get those goals set and figure out what exactly you want to be focusing on and maintain that focus. That's why I recommend for people to write down your goals. Put it on a big sheet of paper and hang it up, right above your computer monitor. And that way, every time you're staring at that monitor and you see that shiny object that you're tempted to buy, look up at that sign and just ask yourself, is this going to help me achieve that? And if the answer is no, then just say, well, it sounds great, but I have to pass. I have to stay focused. You're quite welcome, Dale. Now, another thing that I've had to do to overcome a problem is to work with headphones on. Personally, I like listening to music while I work, in fact. And so this kind of wasn't a major thing for me to attempt to do because I already enjoyed working with music on. But I found, especially when I had to work in the main part of the house, in the living room, when the kids would come home from school and I was in the middle of something that I really needed to focus on, just get some headphones that block out outside noise, not necessarily all of it, but that does a pretty decent job of dampening everything, and then just turn on some music that helps you concentrate or relax or helps to just put you in a better mood. And oftentimes you can work a lot better that way and you stay focused. Actually saw that on what was the movie actually called? Was it Social Network, the Facebook movie? The guys would be sitting there on the laptop and they'd be plugged in. They'd have their headphones on, and they were told not to disturb any of these guys when they were plugged in because they were focused on what they were doing. And actually got a kick out of seeing that because I was just like, I do that. I put my headphones on and I just zone everything else out, and solely focus on what I'm doing. Because sometimes noise can be one of the biggest obstacles to focusing on your work. But it's not necessarily all noise. It's sometimes just particular noises that will take your attention and pull them elsewhere. So I'll replace those unpleasant noises with pleasant noises, and which would be like music, to help me stay calm and relaxed and focused on what it is that I'm doing. Now, another option is using a laptop and leaving your house if need be to get something done. Perhaps you have a deadline that you're trying to meet and everything's crazy in your house. Just grab the laptop and go run up to McDonald's, or pick the deadest restaurant that you can possibly find that still has Wi-Fi access and go sit there. And you might be one of the few people sitting in there, and it could be pretty quiet and serene, in fact. Other options could be like at a library, for example, where they essentially force people to be quiet. A lot of those places nowadays will have Wi-Fi access, and a lot of times it can be free. So, even if you're struggling with finances at home, maybe you don't even have an internet connection at home, which I would assume that's probably not going to be the case for most of you, but it's still possible. You could still go out to a library and work on their computers just to get work done. Whatever it takes, be prepared to get creative to overcome those obstacles. I've been in a situation before where I had a particular client that I had to have a conversation with at a specific date and time, and the power went out at my house and I couldn't get on, So I had to grab my laptop and go run up to McDonald's to be able to accomplish that, or go run over to friend and family's house and just say, hey, I'm in a bind, can you help me out? Could I use your computer for half an hour? Whatever the case may be. Don't ever just sit there and say, I can't get done what I need to get done because of this. Try to figure out a way to overcome that. If need be, you could temporarily obtain a private office. I've had to do this before. In fact, this was something that I had to do this year in my business. I had kind of reached a point where I had things that I wanted to be doing with my business, but I didn't feel like I could achieve them in my current home because I didn't have enough of a private space, and that happens to be these webinars that I'm doing. Obviously, running webinars, I don't want to have to kick my entire family out of the house to get my work done. But I also don't want to not be able to do that simply because I have a family. Well, when I didn't have a nice quiet space that I could actually get this done, I got a private office for a little while and I started doing it there. Now, obviously, you don't want to necessarily do this unless you have a real reason to be doing so, but I felt like if I could have that private space and have that quiet and focus and be able to do exactly what I needed to do when I needed to do it and not worry about all of the outside factors, I felt like I could increase my income to the next level so I could change my living situation and get into a house that had a more private space that would be completely dedicated to me. And that's exactly what I did. I worked in a private office for about 6 months doing webinars and changed where I live. And now I have a private office that I can actually do whatever I need to do in. Not quite sure why that jumped back a couple slides there. Now, any other obstacles that you guys may be experiencing beyond these obstacles? One particular obstacle that I actually wanted to talk to you about that I didn't put here is family. You'll have a lot of people that may not necessarily understand what it is that you're doing when it comes to working online. There are a lot of very traditional conservative people, and in fact, my family members are like that. My father and even my wife's father are traditionally very conservative people, and they have a specific way that they think things are supposed to be done. You know, it's grow up, it's go to school, go to college, graduate, get a job, work that job every day for the rest of your life until you're 65, and then, you know, retire. Well, when they see somebody trying to do something different, they might try to put their opinions upon you and try to force you to do things in a particular way. I went through this struggle after I first got married for many, many years. My wife's father actually didn't think that what I did was a reliable way to support a family. And I had to prove him wrong, essentially. And one way of doing that, obviously, is with money. It's kind of hard to deny money. But on top of that, you know, some people will still view that and say, oh, well, that's just a one-time shot. So it kind of takes years of doing something like this before people like that will really start to come around. And trust me, no matter how set they are against that type of way of life, they can eventually be won over. They will come around. Everybody in my family now completely understands what I do and how I make a living. They may not really understand exactly what it is that I'm doing and how I really accomplish it or keep everything going, but they respect that it works. And that wasn't always the case. So if any of you have this particular obstacle in your life, just try to block all that out is some of the best advice that I can offer. Just, you know, again, maintain your focus on what it is that you're doing. And don't throw all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak. You know, these people will react poorly if you just run out and decide to quit your job one day and you don't necessarily already have that income in place that's going to replace it. And even then, they still might say, well, you know, what if something happens a couple months down the road, or how do you know that it's going to continue? So, you know, put yourself in a position to prove these people wrong, do it responsibly, and it's something that you can really get over, and it will become a thing of the distant past eventually. But I know from personal experience that this type of thing can be really hard to deal with while it's actually going on. So I at least wanted to kind of mention that to you guys in case some of you or even people later on that are watching the recording, in case that's a problem that you're actually having. It's not hopeless. You know, there was a time when I was told by numerous people in my family, from all different sides of my family, that I needed to abandon these silly dreams of mine and go out and get a real job, even if that was flipping burgers at McDonald's or something. And you know what? There was a time when I believed them, and I took their advice, and I put what I was doing on the back burner, and I went out there and I got a real job, and I did that for years, and I got promoted, and I got raises, and I was miserable, and I was still making a fraction of what I made before. And I eventually just got to the point where I said, you know what, I'm really sorry. I hope this doesn't disappoint all of you, but this just isn't right for me. It's not what is best. It's not what is going to offer not only me, but my family the best opportunities in life. It wasn't just about having that steady paycheck. It was about, you know, my kids saying, Dad, I want this, or all my friends have this, and me not having to say, I'm sorry, I can't afford it. It's about my kids waking up on Christmas morning and having presents under the tree instead of there being essentially nothing. Those couple of years when I tried doing things the way that my entire family wanted me to do them, I had a Christmas like that, where Christmas Eve came around and the kids went to bed and me and my wife looked at each other and just said, what are we going to do? There is absolutely nothing under the tree. And it's because we took the advice that everybody else was trying to force upon us. So, I wanted to let you guys know that you don't have to go through those same problems when it comes to your own life and your own family. You have complete control over this type of work. When you're working for somebody else, you follow their rules, you follow their directions, but then when you completely flip-flop all that, it can be a little overwhelming to have complete control over everything. But instead of fearing it, embrace it, take advantage of it, because it's this control that allows you to break free of the standard status quo, so to speak, of what everybody is expected to do and how everybody is expected to live their life. You don't have to slave away at a 9-to-5 job every Monday through Friday. You don't have to be told, no, you can't go on that vacation because we need you in the office. You can just say, this is what I want to do, and I'm doing it. And you don't have to answer to other people. So once you get this control in your own life, it does help to push everybody else out in terms of them not thinking that what you're doing is real. They start to see that you're in control instead of it's controlling you, or you're subject to all these fluctuations that come along with it. Now, another thing, and this kind of rolls back to the same concept here, is believe in yourself. No matter what it is that you're trying to achieve, you have to believe that you can actually succeed doing it, or else you're probably not going to succeed. And a lot of people have this problem when it comes to online marketing. They think that it's above their head, but the appeal of it is still strong enough to get them to try it, but they're not really optimistic about it. They don't count on it happening. They're just like, if it happens, then it happens. Otherwise, I'll just continue on doing things the same way I've always done them. Well, that kind of results in a half effort being put in with whatever you're trying to do, and then when things don't work out, then you simply give up, usually immediately. And most of the time, success doesn't happen this way. It doesn't happen with a half effort, and the success doesn't come immediately. It often takes a lot of hard work, and then eventually that success will come by repeating that hard work over and over again. The important thing here is to believe in yourself, believe in your knowledge, believe in your determination to succeed. And whatever it is, don't take no for an answer. Don't be told you can't do that. Simply identify what your weaknesses may be, what you need to overcome in terms of the obstacles, and lay out a plan to actually make that happen. And then simply make it happen. This also comes to, what I was talking about with family and everything. Your family needs to believe in you too, but before that can ever happen, you have to believe in yourself. Now, whatever you might be doing, whether it's writing or creating videos or building websites, it doesn't matter. You can honestly do probably 10 times more than you'll ever give yourself credit for. And it's hard to realize this until you actually put yourself in a situation and give it your best shot. But you can really surprise yourself. And it doesn't matter what your situation is in life. It doesn't matter what your knowledge or experience level is. There's something online that you can do that you can be successful at, and you can be more successful at it than you've ever believed you could be. It's just a matter of actually saying, okay, I'm making this happen, and setting out the goals and the steps and doing the work that you need to do to actually make that happen. And this kind of comes down to determination. You have to be determined. Whatever you're doing, whatever your goals are going to be, simply set your mind to achieve those goals and then do the work to achieve them. I found this little definition. I don't think this is the real definition of determination, but I still really liked it. And it kind of helps to describe my whole philosophy on determination. It says a fixed purpose, the power and will to persist, resolve, to have the drive, to have the grit to go the distance, and to be hell-bent on reaching a goal and getting it done no matter what. Now, obviously there might be some exceptions to this. You know, you don't want to take unnecessary risk. You know, you don't want to quit your job and say, I'm going to make this happen by the end of this month, or else, you know, everything's going to go horribly wrong. You know, you want to be smart about it, obviously, but figure out what goals you can realistically reach, and don't stop at anything to actually achieve those goals. Don't let things get in your way. Don't let people sidetrack you or tell you that you can't do those things. It's all a matter of, you know, setting it down in your mind, saying, this is what I'm going to do, and making it happen. Honestly, I feel like this is kind of what I did with my entire marketing career. Say, for example, 4 years ago, when I first started developing products for other Amazon affiliates, I was obviously already working online before that and making a full-time living doing Amazon affiliate sites and running other types of websites as well. But when I started sharing those sites with other people and started getting an enormous response from them, I realized that other people could benefit from the knowledge that I had gained over my year's worth of experience doing that type of work. I realized that even though I didn't feel like I was at a point that was anything special, you know, I wasn't rich or anything of that nature, I realized that that's not what everybody was trying to achieve. A lot of people would be perfectly happy just being able to make a full-time living, even if that was the same amount of money they made at their normal job, if they could just replace that online in some way. And so it was kind of at that point and at the urging of a lot of different people that I became determined to essentially grow this new business and become something more than what I already was. And I kind of laid out a plan for myself back then, which obviously I had to make adjustments to over the years, but essentially that same plan kind of still remains in effect, and I still do it to this day. And it was the determination to make that happen that actually kept me going, because it hasn't all been a big success. There's been big successes and there's been equally as big failures along the way too. It's all about saying, I know where I want to get to at the end, and I know where I'm at now. So I'm going to keep pushing forward and doing things to get myself there. And even if every single step along the way doesn't get me a little bit closer, even if it makes me fall backwards just a little bit, it's okay. I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to keep moving forward. And eventually I will reach the point that I'm trying to get to. And honestly, I'm still trying to reach that point even to this day. And it's not necessarily a specific set goal that I am trying to achieve, but I'm trying to get to the point where essentially I don't have to worry about finding new prospects, where I can just kind of work on the business that I have and focus on the customers that I have and not have to be worrying about always growing and growing, because I'm not necessarily out to become rich. I'm just out to take care of my family and to do it in a better manner and to have more free time than I could have possibly had working a real job. These are my particular goals, and I've simply done what I needed to do to try to make these goals into a reality. Now, another thing to talk about is avoiding burnout. No matter how much you want to do, no matter how ambitious your goals are, or even how little free time you actually have to achieve them, make sure you still take time for yourself so you don't get burnout, because you're trying to do this long term. You're not just trying to make a quick buck. At least most of you probably aren't. Some people may say, oh, well, I just need to make some money until I can find another real job. Perhaps you got laid off or something, or, oh, well, I just want to make some extra money for Christmas. Well, if you're going to put forth the effort into making something successful online, as long as you continue with it, then chances are you can continue that success and even grow that success over time and make it more than perhaps what your hopeful expectations were for it to become. So, this, while you're still working a real job, at least this is even more so important, because there's a lot of work to be done there. If you're working a real job and you're working at home and perhaps you have a family on top of that as well, that's a lot of stuff to shove all into one single day and to still have a moment left over for you. Well, while you can kind of push through it for a little while, a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months, for example, without taking any of that time for yourself or very limited amounts of time for yourself, it will eventually get to you and shut you down, and it's probably going to kill the online business, and it could even end up affecting your relationship with your family or your real job as well. So, you want to make sure that things don't implode on themselves, and make sure you take time for yourself. That's the most important thing here. If you can't run and continue to function and feel good about what you're doing, then, how can you be expected to continue it? So you have to make sure that you are always fueled up to be able to do the work that you're going to do. So when you're setting out that schedule for yourself, take this into account. Make sure you don't stretch yourself too thin. You need a little bit of time, perhaps after you get home from your real job, before you jump into working online. Or if you're the kind of person that needs to just get all their work done before they relax, then, come home from work, do some work online, and then take some time at the end of your day to relax, spend time with the family, whatever the case may be. Splurge on yourself a little bit every now and again. If you do something great online and you have a big accomplishment, go out and celebrate it. It doesn't have to be something major, just go out and have a nice dinner or take your family out to do something special. It doesn't have to be crazy things, it can just be simple, ordinary, everyday type of stuff, but it still helps to kind of give you a little bit of a reward system and that downtime that is really, really important to make sure you're getting with this type of work. This also kind of applies into one of the final points that I want to talk to you guys about, which is having fun. Above everything else, enjoy what you do and have fun doing it. When you enjoy what you do, it hardly feels like work. This is how I feel about my online business. Sure, there are times when it gets a little stressful and when maybe I don't feel like doing something that I'm doing at that particular point in time. But ultimately, compared with any other possibility I could think of, any other job I could possibly have, or any other way that I could be making a living, I can't think of anything better, at least for me personally. It might be different from one person to the next, but for me, I enjoy computers. Before I ever made money with computers, while all of the kids back in school were, out on a Friday night having fun, I sat at home on my computer and had fun. When I finish work and want to relax for a little while, sometimes my fun is in the same place. It's still on the computer. And even then, it may not be, something like games necessarily. I actually enjoy programming, for example. I got into programming as a child when I was about 9 or 10 years old. My dad had a book sitting around from college on programming DOS with the basic programming language. And I was just like, what's this? And I picked it up and I started messing around with it. And he was a accountant, and so I luckily actually had a computer in my house growing up, even though they were, something that not the average person, I guess, had in their home. My dad wasn't rich or anything, but he had a company computer at home that he got to use, and as a result, I was able to use. And so I started doing programming for fun. And then I moved on to doing programming on graphics calculators in school, and eventually started building websites because I enjoyed it, because it was fun to do. And so now that all that type of stuff is what I do for a living, it's still fun. It's still enjoyable, and I make money on top of it, so I don't have to worry about doing a real job. All I have to do is focus on this. When you're enjoying what your job is and you're having fun doing it, the people that you interact with out there, they pick that up too. Whether it's writing, which obviously they're not going to be able to hear how you're talking, they're not going to be able to hear whether you're excited about something or not, they can still pick up a general sense of attitude from the way that you write, for example, and say, well, this guy's coming across as really serious, or, wow, this is pretty entertaining, fun writing. So, I like to bring that fun attitude to what I do online as well. Obviously you don't want to go overboard. There are some situations where it's definitely time to get serious, but there's plenty of other times when you can have fun and, lighten up a little bit and be a little bit more carefree with what you're doing. And it helps to keep your stress levels down, and it can also help to simply make you more popular online, because it's not something that the average marketer is out there doing. A lot of people get way too serious about it, and it's all about the pitch and making the sale. And sometimes you just gotta put all that stuff to the side and have a little bit of fun with your website visitors or the people that you're talking to, and they'll appreciate you for it. You build that trust with them, and everything will work out okay in the end as a result. If you happen to be creating videos or doing something like webinar training, for example, this can become even more important than with writing, because obviously everybody is going to notice. They're all going to pick up on this, whether you want them to or not. Whereas with your writing, not necessarily everybody will pick up the kind of attitude or writing style that you may have. Some people simply just focus on the words and don't really get any deeper into it than that. But then you have a lot of other people that will. Well, when it comes to creating videos or doing anything live or any kind of speaking, it's not something that you can kind of hide anymore. People will notice if you don't sound excited about it, or if you're reading off of a script, for example. I used to do my videos scripted. If you go on my YouTube account, for example, and look at the videos that I released back in like 2011, for example, personally, I think they sound horrible. All those videos were scripted. I knew exactly what I was going to say. Before I said it, I had it all written down, and I was essentially reading off of a piece of paper. But not only that, the videos weren't even done in one take. They were shot, like the videos themselves were shot and then edited and put together in different pieces, and then I would do the voice recording over top of that. And it ended up taking a lot of different takes for both the video and the audio parts of it. And all this was being done because I was trying to be too serious about it. I was trying to make everything perfect. I didn't want to have me saying or pausing for a couple of seconds or whatever the case may be at some point during the video. I tried to make everything perfect. And as a result, I kind of made it the opposite. It became dull and boring, and was obvious that I was reading off of a script. And it's hard for people to get engaged with things like that. So when I adopted that more fun and carefree attitude towards things like doing videos and training and speaking to people, is when I finally realized beyond a shadow of a doubt that this works. And it not only works better for your audience, wherever or whatever kind of audience this may be, but it also works better simply for you, because you're maintaining this certain stance, I guess, of presenting your information. And instead of doing it kind of like in a news report format, when you do something live and it's not scripted and it's not necessarily completely planned out, things change from one time to the next, and they sound natural, which is one of the most important things there. So I personally find the whole keep calm and have fun mentality to be extremely important when it comes to my own marketing business and any kind of work that I do online. It's not just about the videos and the webinars and stuff. I try to do this type of thing with my own websites as well. People don't always want a news report. People want you to be real with them, and you can apply that same concept to almost anything that you're doing online, whether it's building websites or interacting with people in a forum or chatting on Skype or making videos or running webinars. Really doesn't matter. You can still kind of lighten things up a little bit, try to have a little bit of fun, and enjoy what you're doing. And then you won't ever feel like you're really working. Any questions that you guys may have at this point? I know a lot of you guys have been a little on the quiet side tonight. That's quite okay, but please feel free if there's something in particular or a certain reason why you may have joined up with this class tonight, an obstacle that you have in your own business, some goals that you're trying to achieve and having difficulties achieving them for one reason or another. Maybe you're having problems getting organized or staying organized and focused and on track. Maybe you don't have much to get motivated for. Maybe you have a real job that's not quite so bad, and maybe you work for yourself. There's still got to be a reason to motivate yourself to do this type of work one way or another. So, whatever the case may be, please feel free to chime in the chat box and let me know exactly what you guys are trying to overcome with your own online careers. If you work a real job and you're having problems fitting in, your online work with what you're doing normally, let me know. Let me know what kind of situation you're facing. Let me see if there's something that I could suggest to try to help you out, to help you overcome those problems. And, if you don't want to ask specific questions, it's quite all right too, but I at least wanted you guys to know that, you are more than welcome to ask if you would like to. That's cool, Dale. You find listening occasionally to various motivational, inspirational, instructional videos on YouTube helps get me motivated when I feel down. That is a good point. You can, kind of feed off of the excitement of others sometimes, which I think might be kind of part of the whole shiny object syndrome mentality, is that, all these other people are getting involved with this same project or product that's just been released, and they're all jumping on it and getting excited about it, and it becomes a little inspirational in a way. And these sales pages are set up to be inspirational. A marketer wants you to be inspired when you read that sales page and wants you to feel like this is something I can do. And that's what gets you to end up clicking the buy button. So, there is kind of some truth to that and things you can take away from that to help you with your online business, but also to, keep you from having to click the buy button necessarily every time you're inspired by somebody else doing something like that. So, personally, I think that that's great that you're actually, getting inspired by other people and, using the things that they have to say to help propel yourself to do more. Personally, when my motivation dies, and this happens, despite everything that I've told you, despite all of these little tricks that I've tried to use to keep myself on track, there are definitely days when I wake up and I'm just like, I don't want to do this today. My bills are paid. I have money in the bank. There's nobody that absolutely needs me to be doing something for them today. Why not just take a day off? And, I've done it before, but if you do it for too many days in a row, you do it for too long, things can start to slip on you. Whether it's your income or just keeping in touch with people or whatever the case may be. So, you have to try to develop some habits in that regard to working online, working at home, and, being your own boss. And I would imagine the same thing would have to kind of apply to running your own business, out in the real world. If you had a brick and mortar business, you'd have to show up for work every day, not because you necessarily had to, but because you'd probably have other employees there that were still expecting things of you and were depending upon you. So I know a lot of other marketers will do outsourcing, and I think that kind of helps them to essentially stay on track because they're paying other people to do this work for them. And, if there's something that they're supposed to be doing also to go along with that, then there is that expectation out there. And it's more than just yourself involved. And for the same reason, people also get involved in different types of partnerships online. See, Greg says, I just hit it. The job wasn't too bad, but the IM experience called as that business's expansion became stagnant. Growth even reversed. Staying motivated and focused has been the most difficult aspect. The time has come to review my reasons and directions. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, and then advance, definitely. It sounds like you kind of have it figured out, or at least maybe have it clear in your head of the correct direction that you should be taking. Obviously, like you said, staying motivated and focused being the most difficult part of all that. You just have to figure out what's going to work the best for you and what you're going to actually enjoy the most and benefit from the most. Personally, if I had to make a choice, let's say the work that I do right now, let's say that it paid the exact same amount of money as, I don't know, being a cashier at McDonald's or something. Which would I do? I would choose this over and over and over again, even if it wasn't paying that. So, I have to make sure I'm doing what's going to make me happy and also still think about what logically makes the most sense. But ultimately, if you can't stay motivated and happy with what you're doing and focused on the work that you're doing, then, a lot of the other stuff starts to not matter. You just kind of become stuck and never really move forward in that regard. And, I think that kind of thing, at least for me personally, when it comes to a career, I'm the only person in my family that works. My wife does not work. She stays at home and takes care of the children. And so, everything is on my shoulders. It's all my responsibility to make sure everything keeps working and to make sure the bills get paid every month. And, so I have to make sure that I continue everything all the time without letting up. And I have to stay motivated and focused to do that. But if I didn't enjoy what I did, I would have a hard time actually continuing to do that, I would believe. So personally, I feel like it's a big thing. You don't have to necessarily enjoy every single aspect of what you're doing. There could be some tedious parts to it that you don't necessarily enjoy. There are plenty of things that I don't necessarily enjoy about the business that I do or about the work that I do, but overall, in the grand scheme of things, it's many, many more times better than anything else I could possibly fathom doing for a career. I've even had people in my family say, once upon a time, well, take the skills that I have from my online business and, take them to go get a job in the real world with it. And, ultimately I'd be working for somebody else, following their rules, doing the same work still, and probably making a fraction of the money, and ultimately having absolutely no control. Yeah, online. Yeah, well, I refer to the real world as in like working a real job. The online world it's still the real world, but when it comes to work, it's different between the two. So, obviously everything online is quite real. The things that you do online and the money that you can make there is quite real. The people that you affect online, they're quite real. But I think people can kind of lose that sense of realism because it's all taking place, on a screen that's sitting on your desk. And ultimately, if you go over and you pull the plug on that, then that world, while it still exists, to you, it really doesn't exist anymore. So, it's almost kind of a fictional fairy tale land, if you will. I always like to kind of call what I do making money out of thin air. Programming or writing, things of that nature. It's basically what you're doing. You're taking like a blank piece of paper and putting words on it and turning it into money. Thanks. Thanks, Greg. Any other questions that you guys may have for me? That pretty much concludes at least everything that I wanted to be sure to talk to you guys about. But I don't mind sticking around and talking to you guys even more if you have particular questions that you would like to ask me, or perhaps you just have a certain situation going on that you might need a little bit of advice on. I don't mind at all. Please feel free to speak up if you would like to. And if not, that's quite all right too. I know a lot of guys just prefer to listen, and other people may have certain things that they would like to chat about. Either way, it's quite okay. I hope at the very least that all of you guys have taken something valuable away from everything that I've had to teach you this evening. I personally find all this stuff to be really useful and important in my own marketing business and online career. And they're kind of things that I didn't necessarily learn and figure out overnight. A lot of these things took a long time to kind of work out something for me or for my family that actually worked for not just one person but for everybody. So I really hope that something that I've shared with you this evening can help to motivate you more with your own work online, or to perhaps help you try to break into new territory that maybe you were a little fearful of breaking into before. Oh, you're quite welcome, Dale. I'm glad you found this to be very helpful, and I appreciate all of your comments as well. You're welcome, Laura. Good to hear from you. I don't think I've heard from you this evening yet. A lot of the points I made were the same as your own values. Inspiring for sure. Good to hear. I'm glad. Sometimes you may think these type of things, but like you're saying, hearing somebody else say them also, somebody that's actually, perhaps been there and done that before, can definitely help to set your mind at ease and know that, you are indeed headed on the right track with what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm glad that could be helpful there for you, Laura. Anybody else that may have questions for me or